Hey everybody, welcome back. Alright, so in this lesson we are going to make the bass layer for our chord progression. So what we've been working on before, obviously. So this wants to have a bass layer. It's also going to have another layer as well, so it will be made up of a total of 3 layers eventually. And that third layer will be a nice bright single note sort of modulated layer, which is going to just play the top notes of it. But we'll get to that in the next lesson. For now, we just want to concentrate on the bass layer. So I'm just going to move all of this lot up to bar 21. So do copy that so we're all in the same place. And I'm just going to very quickly play the final edit of the track so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. So that's basically the sound that we're making at the moment, and it is comprised, like I say, of 3 things or 3 layers. And in this lesson, we are making the bass layer. So let's do that. So I'm going to add a vital instrument. And let's just bring in the MIDI for it as well. So I'll explain how we came to the MIDI in just a sec, but let's just bring it in. So I'm going to go to my work files, MIDI folder, and bring in the bass melody layer, drop it on our new vital instrument. Actually, let's quickly name these. Okay, all good. And now let's actually create the sound that we want. So I'm going to load up Vital. So what you can do is just load up the preset. I'm just going to do it now so we can actually hear it before we actually create it. So I'm just going to go and open external preset. So again, just navigate to wherever your work files have been downloaded and uncompressed. And we want this preset within the work files Vital Patches folder, and it's called Future Pop Bone. So double click on that and we'll load it up. So this, if I just solo this for a second and turn it down. So that's the sound that we're going to be making. And obviously you can just leave the preset loaded up if you want. That's absolutely fine. I'm going to initialize the preset and build it from scratch. So as of yet, we haven't actually sort of touched on how to use your own or third-party wavetables in Vital. Well, it's actually super easy. So within the work files, again, in the Vital presets folder, there's another folder called Wavetables. In that, there is a wavetable called Logarithmic. And all you got to do is find it in your Explorer, whether that's on Mac or PC. It's your standalone Explorer window. Click on it and drag it into your DAW, and you'll see Vital recognize that you're dragging in something here. And what you want to do is either drop it on Wavetable, vocode, or pitch splice. So as we're loading an already created wavetable, we'll drop it on that. If you were going to create your own wavetables out of, say, an audio sample that you've got, you'll drop it on either vocode or pitch splice. We'll get to this in the standalone Vital tutorial that's free on YouTube if you want to check that out in more detail. But for now, we're just going to drop this on Wavetable. And there we go. We've got our wavetable loaded in. This is actually from a free pack, which you can find if you just Google free wavetables. And this is from a pack called Basstables 2, I believe, in which there's like about 60 or so different sort of wavetables specifically made for bass sounds. But there's like literally thousands of available free stuff online on the wavetable front. So go check that out if you want. So this is the first layer of our sound. Bit high at the moment, so let's drop this down an octave. So I'm holding shift and just dragging the transpose. As you can hear, nice sort of dirty sound. But what we want to do is modulate the frame. So we're going to use envelope 2 again, because we don't want to use envelope 1 because that's controlling the dynamics. So let's drag envelope 2 over to the frame amount. And obviously at the moment it's not doing anything. We need to add some attack. So, sounding okay, but one of the key things I found when making sort of dirty bass sounds is you really want to change the attack so it's a bit steeper, something like this. And also I'm just going to turn down the effectiveness or the depth of the modulation of the envelope just a little bit, so it's not quite changing this as much as it was. So it sounded pretty good. Let's just find a nice place for it. So not too bad. I think just change the attack a little bit so it's a little bit longer. Yeah, that's sounding pretty nice. Okay, lovely stuff. Now, obviously this sound doesn't really have much bass in it, so let's add another oscillator. And we're going to use just a factory preset, basic shapes. So this will be in all versions of Vital. And we just want to change this to this waveform, the second one in the actual wavetable, which is kind of like a almost squared off sine wave. Again, it's a bit too high, so let's hold shift and drag down. Just turn that down a fraction, but that's sounding pretty good. Let's see what it sounds like a bit wider as well. Two voices. So that adds a really nice sort of sound to the bass. I actually quite like that. Now, normally I'm not a fan of actually making bass into a stereo sound because you want to keep bass or the sub bass part at least nice and mono, but it does sound good in this case. So let's just play a bit with that. Yeah, that does sound lovely. So that's fine. We're going to keep that for now. And then one last oscillator, and this is going to be something a little bit different. We're going to just use the standard or the stock waveform, but we are going to use the first oscillator to modulate or to frequency modulate this waveform. So that's quite easily done. All you got to do is come down here, click and select FM Osc 1. So it's going to frequency oscillate this oscillator using the first oscillator. So let's just quickly play that. So you can hear how dirty it makes it sound as opposed to this having nothing on there. See, it's just a standard saw wave, but with FM oscillation. Whoa, well dirty. Love it. So let's also modulate this as well. So it's not just playing that, although it is quite nice, but we will use envelope 2. So let's just click and drag, drop it on this dial here. Now that's going a bit too extreme, or it's changing it too much over time. So we need to change that amount. Something like that. What you will find though with the FM oscillation is if you have it too far up, sort of over the halfway mark, it starts getting really noisy. And that just sounds nasty. So generally the sort of first half of this circle is the best place to have it. It sounds nice, it's just a little bit too loud. So let's just mix it into our current sound. And that's sounding pretty nice. Couple more things that I want to do, but this page is basically done. I mean, it's a fairly straightforward sound, but I do want to just tweak it a bit by the effects page. So let's just go into that. And the first thing I want to add is a compressor. So now it works in a different way to most sort of standard compressors. As you can see, there's no visible threshold control or ratio control. I will get to that in just a second. But just to explain it a bit clearer, let's actually stick it onto a single band mode. So this is just a single band compressor, but instead of just a standard compressor, it's also got an upward compressor. So a standard compressor is a downward compressor, and it just sort of turns the loud bits down, basically evening out the volume level. And an upward compressor, which is this bit down here, makes the quieter bits louder. And this section up here is the downward compressor, the standard compression. And this is the threshold. So obviously you're just lowering the threshold by this. And if you have it right up, that basically means it's completely open. So it won't be compressing anything. And the further you have it down, the more it's compressing. Now this here, these sort of lines, which you can change when you get that double arrow, this is the ratio amount. So if I keep moving this up, you can see the ratio is getting less, although it's sort of displayed in a different way that you see on a normal compressor. So obviously that's like no compression at all basically, and then really high compression when those lines are very tight together. More like a limiter if you've got it like up like that sort of thing. And then this upward compressor works in the same way. So this is the threshold. Move it up or down, and then you've got the ratio control for it just the same as the downward compressor. Now, the only other two functions that we have on a standard compressor is attack and release. Now, I think these actually work a little bit differently to normal attack and release settings. So this is done in a percentage. So I think the attack and release is actually set internally, or the attack time and the release time, at least that's what it seems like. And then you just choose how much of that attack or how much of that release you want. So it's a little different to a standard compressor, but once you get used to it, it's all happy days. But for now, let's just stick it back on multiband. Now, I'm not going to mess with the settings. I think we're just going to leave it as it is. Just its release can stay up, but I'm going to have slightly less attack than what's standard. That is the normal amount. And then we're just going to balance this a little bit with some EQ. So we will use the low, but we'll use it on high shelf, which is the default setting. And we're just going to give this a bit of a boost. Just to really bring out the sub. And very lastly, we will actually add a bit of reverb to this as well. So just activate reverb. And we will, first off, just filter out some of the lows. Now, in order to really hear this, you want to kind of turn up the mix quite a bit to start off with. So you can hear it's reverbing or reverberating the low end a lot as well. So we want to tame that so it's not really reverbing on the sub bass. So that's a bit too much, so somewhere around here. Just taking out the real sub frequencies, and then let's just balance out the mix again. Perhaps have a slightly longer time. Now, the reason we take out those lows is because if you have it on all of the bass sounds and you've got the kick playing and you've got maybe a sub bass as well, whatever, then it's just going to create a huge mess in the low end. So it's really important to keep the low end of your track very clean and very tight. So that's why we always EQ out the very low frequencies of the reverb, especially when it's on something like a bass sound. All right, so let's just play that with the rest of the mix so far. So the bass and the lead is actually a little bit too loud. I'm just going to select both of them and turn them both down. Now on Cubase, you can do that by holding Alt and Shift, or Option and Shift on a Mac. I don't know if you can do that on your individual DAW, but if not, obviously just turn them down individually, no probs. Snare's a fraction loud as well. But you can get the idea, and let's just compare that to what we're going for. So we are getting there. Obviously, got a way to go yet. But we have the main sort of sounds in there. Obviously, a side chaining, which we're going to get to in a little bit, is really going to help that as well. And of course, adding in all the other sounds and everything else. Okay, that is it for the 3 lessons of the tutorial. We have only just gotten started. We have all the sounds to make, the dirty bass sounds, leads, even the SFX, then adding depth to the mix, learning in detail how to structure your tracks so they generate a sense of push and pull and keep people engaged, how to source singers, how to record vocals, how to process vocals, how to balance and mix your tracks effortlessly, and even master them. This is basically a no-brainer. You're going to learn loads. So click the link in the description and join the course. Thanks for watching.